The massive Credarian warship hung in Earth's orbit like a predator eyeing its prey. Commander Vex stood on the bridge, his scaled skin reflecting the blue glow of the tactical displays surrounding him. His four eyes narrowed as he studied the data streaming in from the planet below. "Report," he commanded, his voice sharp and decisive. "The planet shows significant military capabilities, Commander," replied his second-in-command, Officer Trell. "But there's something strange in our scans. The humans appear to keep smaller creatures in their dwellings and public spaces." Vex tilted his head, mandibles clicking with curiosity. "Elaborate." Trell brought up visual feeds captured from Earth's various media sources. They showed humans walking smaller furry creatures on string-like attachments, holding them in their arms, even sleeping alongside them. "Our analysts believe these must be biological weapons, Commander. Perhaps genetically engineered attack creatures. The puzzling thing is how openly they display them." Commander Vex studied the images with growing concern. One showed a human child embracing a furry four-legged creature that seemed to be licking the child's face. Is it extracting information? Or perhaps some slow-acting venom? He wondered aloud. "Unknown, sir, but the presence of these creatures in nearly every human settlement suggests they're important to their military doctrine." Vex straightened his towering frame. A species that flaunts its weapons so casually must be either foolish or extremely confident. We must proceed with caution. He made his decision. Open communication channels. We will demand their surrender before they can deploy these beasts against us. Captain James Miller was enjoying his morning coffee in the garden when his phone rang. As head of Earth's newly formed extraterrestrial contact division, he rarely got calls on his personal line unless something big was happening. "Miller here," he answered, watching as his golden retriever Max chased butterflies across the lawn. "Captain, we need you at headquarters immediately," came the urgent voice of his assistant. "We've made contact." Miller's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. "First contact. Confirmed." "Yes, sir. A fleet of ships in orbit. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. They're demanding to speak with Earth's leaders." 20 minutes later, Miller strode into the crisis center, where screens displayed an alien face unlike anything humans had imagined. The creature had 4 yellow eyes, a mouth full of small sharp teeth, and greenish scales covering its head. "I am Commander Vex of the Credarian fleet," the alien announced. "Your planet has been identified as a potential threat to galactic security. We demand immediate discussions regarding your surrender terms." The room fell silent. Miller stepped forward. "I am Captain James Miller of Earth's Extraterrestrial Contact Division. We have no hostile intentions toward any spacefaring civilization. We welcome peaceful dialogue." The alien commander's eyes narrowed. "Our scans show your biological weapons program is extensive. You keep these weapons in your homes, even with your young." Miller exchanged confused glances with his team. The morning of the meeting arrived with clear skies and a tense atmosphere. Captain Miller adjusted his formal uniform one last time before glancing at Max, who sat obediently in the back of his SUV. "I probably shouldn't bring you," Miller told the golden retriever, "but you help me think clearly. Just stay in the car unless I call for you." Max tilted his head and gave a soft woof in response. The chosen meeting site was a remote airfield surrounded by empty fields. The human delegation arrived first, setting up a simple table with chairs under a canopy. Military personnel established a perimeter at a respectful distance. "They're coming," announced Colonel Harris, pointing to the sky. A sleek craft descended, hovering briefly before touching down on the tarmac. The ship's doors slid open, and Commander Vex emerged, flanked by 4 armed guards. The alien's 4 eyes darted nervously around the area, scanning for threats. Miller stepped forward with hands open in the universal gesture of peace. "Commander Vex, welcome to Earth. We're pleased to meet with you face to face." Vex nodded stiffly. "Captain Miller, my delegation is prepared to discuss terms." The two groups approached the table cautiously. Miller noticed that Vex kept glancing around, as if expecting an ambush. "Before we begin, I must know, where are you concealing your beasts?" Vex asked abruptly. Miller's brow furrowed. "I'm sorry, Commander, but I still don't understand what beasts you're referring to." Just then, a bark echoed from Miller's parked SUV. Max had spotted a rabbit and was alerting his owner. The effect on the alien delegation was immediate and dramatic. Vex jumped backward, his guards raising their weapons. "You brought one here," Vex hissed, mandibles clicking rapidly in what Miller would later learn was extreme agitation. "You dare bring your attack beast to peace talks?" Miller raised his hands. "Commander, please. That's just my dog. He's completely harmless." "Dog?" Vex repeated the unfamiliar word. "Your biological weapon has a designation." No, he's not a weapon. He's a pet, a companion animal." Miller tried to explain. "Many humans keep animals for companionship." Vex's four eyes blinked in rapid succession. "You expect me to believe you keep predator species in your dwellings for companionship?" Max barked again, pawing at the window of the SUV. "Perhaps a demonstration would help," Miller suggested carefully. "With your permission, I'll bring Max over so you can see he's no threat." After a tense discussion among the aliens, Vex reluctantly agreed but ordered his guards to stand ready. Miller walked to his vehicle and returned with Max on a leash. The golden retriever trotted happily beside him, tongue lolling out. The Credarian delegation backed away several steps. "Contain the beast," Vex demanded. "He is contained," Miller explained, holding up the leash. "This is how we control where our dogs can go. That thin tether is all that prevents it from attacking." Vex seemed incredulous. "Max doesn't want to attack anyone," Miller said. "He's friendly." "Watch," he commanded Max to sit, which the dog did immediately. "It obeys verbal commands," observed one of Vex's scientists, recording data. "A bioengineered soldier species." Miller sighed. "No, just thousands of years of domestication. Dogs evolved alongside humans. They were wolves once, but over many generations, they became our companions. You domesticated predators for pleasure." Vex's tone conveyed disbelief and perhaps disgust. "For many purposes originally. Hunting, protection, work. But yes, today mostly for companionship." Vex studied the wagging tail and gentle eyes of Max. "This must be psychological warfare. You parade these former killers as docile servants to intimidate your enemies." "I assure you, that's not," Miller began, but Vex raised a hand to silence him. "We will withdraw to consider this new information," the commander announced. "Your display of power is noted, Captain Miller." Before Miller could protest further, the Credarian delegation retreated to their ship. As they departed, Miller looked down at Max, who was now lying contentedly at his feet. "Well, boy," he sighed, "I think we just made things worse." The Credarian War Council chamber buzzed with urgent conversation. Commander Vex stood before a large display showing images of Earth's various dogs collected from human broadcasts and internet sources. Each photo seemed more alarming than the last. Huge dogs with powerful jaws, small aggressive-looking dogs, dogs running at high speeds, dogs jumping over obstacles. "They have bred them in countless varieties," Vex explained to his assembled officers. "Different sizes, different abilities, clearly designed for different tactical purposes." Admiral Kroll, the highest-ranking Credarian military leader in the sector, leaned forward. "And they bring these creatures into their sleeping quarters." "Yes," Vex confirmed. "They allow the beasts to guard them at their most vulnerable. Some even share their resting platforms with them." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the chamber. "Such reckless confidence," hissed the Admiral. "Either these humans are fools, or they possess such advanced technology that they feel no need to hide their biological weapons. Either way, they represent a significant threat." Officer Trell displayed new images captured during the meeting. "As you can see, Captain Miller brought one such beast to our diplomatic encounter. Note how he demonstrated its obedience, clearly a show of their control over these predators. Vex nodded grimly. They call this psychological warfare, a subtle threat that if we do not agree to their terms, they will unleash the beasts. The Admiral's decision was swift. Send them our demands. All beasts must be contained in secure facilities before any further negotiations. Their display of power will not intimidate the Credarian Empire. Back on Earth, Captain Miller faced an increasingly frustrated Security Council. They want us to what? General Williams asked, his voice rising with each word. Miller sighed, reviewing the message again. Their exact words are, all biological attack creatures must be secured in containment facilities as a show of good faith. Failure to remove these beasts from human dwellings will be considered an act of aggression. They want us to put all our dogs in kennels. The Secretary of Defense looked bewildered. All 900 million of them worldwide. Not just dogs, Miller clarified. The message mentions furry companions in general. I think they mean cats too. And possibly other pets. President Adams rubbed her temples. This has to be the strangest first contact scenario in all the science fiction I've read. They think we're threatening them with our pets. That's my understanding, Madam President, Miller confirmed. They believe we're flaunting our biological weapons. This is absurd, General Williams protested. We can't round up every pet on the planet because aliens are afraid of Fluffy and Fido. The Secretary of State raised a practical concern. Even if we wanted to comply, it would be logistically impossible. And the public outcry would be overwhelming. Miller had been thinking about this problem all night. I believe we need to show them rather than tell them. If they could see how humans and dogs actually interact, they might understand. What are you suggesting, Captain? The President asked. A demonstration. Bring dogs of various breeds. Show them being played with by children, performing helpful tasks, just being normal pets. Let them see these animals aren't weapons. The Council debated Miller's proposal, finally agreeing it was worth trotting. The President authorized a message to be sent to the Credarian fleet, inviting them to observe a cultural exhibition of human-animal companionship. Commander Vex received Earth's response with his war council. They refused to contain their beasts. He translated for the others. Instead, they invite us to witness their cultural exhibition with these creatures. Admiral Kroll's scales darkened with anger. They mock us. They plan to show their full arsenal of biological weapons as intimidation. They even mention bringing juvenile humans to interact with the beasts, Vex added. A clear message that their youngest can control these predators. A display of their species' dominance. Prepare battle plans, ordered the Admiral. If they insist on flaunting their weapons instead of containing them, we must assume hostile intent. As alarms sounded throughout the Credarian fleet, Vex wondered if the humans truly didn't understand how threatening their offer appeared, or if this was all part of their strategy. The morning of the demonstration dawned bright and clear. Captain Miller had arranged everything at a large public park, now secured by a light military presence trying to look as non-threatening as possible. A dozen handlers with various breeds of dogs waited nervously, along with several families who had volunteered to help show how humans and dogs interacted. Remember, keep everything natural and relaxed. Miller instructed the participants. We need them to see these are companions, not weapons. A young woman named Amy knelt beside her border collie Rusty. How can anyone think this sweetheart is a weapon? She wondered aloud, scratching behind Rusty's ears. Miller smiled weakly. Different planets, different perspectives. Let's just hope this works. The distinctive hum of the Credarian shuttle broke the morning quiet. It descended slowly, landing at the far end of the field. The door opened to reveal Commander Vex and a small delegation, all wearing what appeared to be protective gear. Miller noted with interest that one of the aliens was smaller, with lighter-colored scales. This one moved with curiosity rather than fear, looking around eagerly while the others maintained rigid postures. "Welcome," Miller called out, walking forward alone. "Thank you for agreeing to this cultural exchange." Vex stepped forward, though Miller noticed he remained behind a portable shield carried by one of his guards. "We are here to evaluate your claims about these creatures. Proceed with your demonstration." Miller gestured toward the field. "We've arranged for you to see different types of dogs performing various activities, the kinds of things we keep them for." First came the working dogs. A border collie herded a small group of sheep in a tight circle. A retriever demonstrated fetching objects from water. A rescue dog showed how it could find a person hiding under a pile of blankets. The Credarians watched intently, recording everything with small devices. The smaller alien whispered something to Vex, who responded with a sharp gesture that silenced the subordinate. "These are specialized functions," Miller explained. "But most humans keep dogs simply for companionship." On cue, families began playing with their pets. A little boy threw a ball for his golden retriever. A teenager showed how her poodle could dance on its hind legs for treats. An elderly man sat peacefully with his old beagle resting at his feet. Throughout it all, the smaller Credarian moved closer, seemingly fascinated. Miller heard the alien's translator device working as it asked questions of one of the human handlers. "Commander," Miller said, "I'd like to introduce you to Max, my own dog." He signaled, and an assistant brought Max forward on a leash. The golden retriever was calm but curious about the strange-smelling visitors. "Max has been my companion for 7 years," Miller explained. "He lives in my home, sleeps near my bed, and accompanies me when possible. He's trained to be friendly to everyone." The smaller Credarian stepped forward. "May I observe more closely, Commander?" Vex seemed reluctant but finally nodded. "Proceed with caution, Science Officer Lyra." Lyra approached Max with obvious fascination. This animal's body language indicates no aggression. Its vital signs show calm and curiosity. Max wagged his tail, looking up at the alien with friendly interest. "Would you like to see how gentle he is?" Miller asked. "You could touch him." "Absolutely not," Vex interjected. "No direct contact." But as they spoke, a small Jack Russell puppy from one of the family demonstrations had wandered away from its owners. With the boundless confidence of all puppies, it trotted directly toward the Credarian delegation, yipping happily. Chaos erupted instantly. Vex backed away rapidly, shouting, "Defensive measures." The beast approaches. Guards raised weapons, pointing them at the oblivious puppy still happily bouncing toward them. "No," Miller shouted, diving forward. He scooped up the puppy just as Lyra stepped between the guards and the humans. "Commander, stop," Lyra cried out. "It's just an infant animal. Look." Miller held the wiggling puppy up. It licked his chin, tail wagging frantically. "This is not an attack," Miller said, trying to keep his voice steady. "This is just a curious baby animal. It doesn't even have its adult teeth yet." Vex stared at the tiny creature, his 4 eyes blinking in confusion as the puppy yipped again, still wiggling in Miller's hands with obvious delight. Vex seemed at a loss for words. "This requires further analysis." Science Officer Lyra stood before Commander Vex and the Credarian War Council, her data tablet clutched tightly in her claws. 3 days had passed since the demonstration at the park, and she had spent every moment studying the strange Earth creatures. "Commander, honored council members," she began, "I believe we have seriously misunderstood the nature of these Earth animals." Vex's mandibles clicked with irritation. "Explain yourself, Science Officer." "These creatures, dogs, cats, and other pets as they call them, are not biological weapons," Lyra stated firmly. "My research indicates they are exactly what the humans claim. Companion species that have co-evolved with humans over thousands of years." She displayed images on the main screen, ancient cave paintings showing humans hunting alongside wolves, Egyptian hieroglyphics depicting cats in households, medieval art with lapdogs. "These relationships date back to the earliest human civilizations," she explained. The canines began as wolves that formed mutually beneficial relationships with human hunter-gatherers. Over generations, humans selectively bred them to enhance traits like friendliness, obedience, and reduced aggression. Admiral Kroll snorted with disbelief. You expect us to believe they deliberately made predators less dangerous? What military purpose would that serve? That's just it, Admiral, Lyra replied. The purpose wasn't military at all. These animals provided hunting assistance, protection, pest control, and eventually, emotional connection. Emotional connection with a different species. Vex seemed unable to grasp the concept. Lyra nodded eagerly. This is the most fascinating part. Humans form deep emotional bonds with these animals. They consider them family members. The animals, in turn, showed genuine attachment to their human caretakers. She showed brain scans comparing human and dog neural activity. When humans and dogs interact positively, both species show increased oxytocin, their bonding hormone. It's similar to the brain chemistry we see in credarian parent-child relationships. The council members exchanged uncertain glances. This explains why they reacted with such confusion to our demands. Lyra continued. Asking humans to lock away their pets would be like asking us to imprison our children. Vex remained skeptical. Even if what you say is true, these creatures still have predator capabilities. The larger ones could easily kill a human. Yet they don't. Lyra countered. The training and breeding are remarkably effective. Incidents of aggression are rare and usually the result of mistreatment or fear. She paused. Commander, I would like to arrange a controlled interaction. I believe it's essential for understanding. Hours later, Captain Miller arrived at a neutral facility with Max. The room had been prepared with a clear barrier dividing it in half, humans and dog on one side, credarians on the other. Thank you for coming, Lyra greeted them. Commander Vex has agreed to observe your dog more closely. Vex stood stiffly behind the barrier, watching as Max settled calmly at Miller's feet. What would you like to see? Miller asked. Could you demonstrate basic interactions? Lyra requested. Miller nodded and began showing how Max responded to commands. Sit, stay, shake hands. He demonstrated how the dog knew the names of different toys and could fetch specific ones. His intelligence seems limited but focused, Vex observed. Different from ours, but yes, they're smart in their own way, Miller agreed. He scratched behind Max's ears, causing the dog to close his eyes in contentment. They understand emotions better than words. Lyra pressed a button, sliding open a small section of the barrier. Commander, with your permission, I would like to attempt contact. Vex hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Proceed with caution. Lyra knelt and extended her hand as Miller had shown her. Max sniffed curiously, then gave her scaled fingers a gentle lick. It doesn't fear our difference, she noted with surprise. Dogs generally accept whoever their humans accept, Miller explained. They trust our judgment. Vex watched in amazement as Lyra cautiously stroked Max's fur, the dog leaning into her touch. Commander, Lyra said quietly, would you like to try? The room fell silent. Vex stared at the dog, centuries of credarian instinct telling him to flee from a predator. But something else, scientific curiosity perhaps, pushed him forward. With trembling claws, he reached through the opening. Max sniffed his hand, then pushed his head against Vex's palm, asking for pets. The commander's eyes widened as he felt the soft fur, the gentle pressure, the living warmth of a creature that showed no fear or hostility, only friendly interest. Extraordinary, Vex whispered, a lifetime of assumptions beginning to crumble. 3 weeks after Commander Vex's first direct contact with Max, the Credarian flagship hosted an unprecedented event, the first official cultural exchange between humans and Credarians. Captain Miller led a small delegation aboard, accompanied by carefully selected dogs and their handlers. The Credarian crew had transformed their recreational area into a neutral meeting space. Humans noticed the room's temperature was warmer than they preferred, while Credarians found it cooler than their norm. a literal middle ground between species. "Welcome aboard." Science Officer Lyra greeted them, her scales shimmering with excitement. She had become the unofficial ambassador between the species. "Everyone is eager to learn more about your companions." Miller smiled, noticing how much more relaxed the Credarians appeared around the dogs now. "We're honored to be here. We've brought several different breeds to show the variety of relationships humans have with dogs." Commander Vex entered, still moving with caution, but no longer showing outright fear. "Captain Miller, your visit is appreciated." Though his words were formal, Miller noted the commander's eyes kept drifting to the golden retriever at his side. "Hello again, Commander. I believe you remember Max." Max's tail wagged at the sound of his name. Vex nodded stiffly. "Indeed. Your companion animal has made quite an impression on my crew." Lyra guided them through the gathering. Small groups of curious Credarians met each dog, asking questions through translators. A therapy dog demonstrated how it could sense human distress. A search and rescue dog showed its training. A playful border collie performed tricks that delighted even the most reserved aliens. One young Credarian technician knelt beside a corgi, carefully offering a treat as the handler had shown. When the dog gently took it from her claws, she made a chirping sound that the translators didn't catch. "What was that?" Miller asked Lyra. "A sound of pleasure," Lyra explained. "Similar to your laughter. Many of us have never experienced interspecies connection before. It's affecting." As the event continued, Miller noticed Vex standing apart, watching everything with intense focus. He approached the commander with Max following obediently. "Something troubling you, Commander?" Vex's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "I am trying to understand why our species developed so differently. Why do Credarians have no equivalent to your pets?" Miller hadn't expected such a philosophical question. "Lyra mentioned something about your evolutionary history. Maybe that's related." "Yes," Vex admitted. "Our ancestors were prey species. For millions of years, we were hunted by larger predators on our homeworld. We survived through intelligence, technology, and avoiding dangerous creatures, not befriending them." Miller nodded thoughtfully. "That explains a lot. Humans evolved as social predators ourselves. We hunted alongside wolves before we domesticated them. Your species embraced the predator within," Vex observed. "Ours suppressed it." As they talked, Max had settled at their feet, head resting on his paws. Vex glanced down. "He appears to be guarding us both now," the commander noted with surprise. "He's relaxed because I am," Miller explained. "Dogs pick up on our emotions. If I trust you, he trusts you." Something shifted in Vex's posture. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered himself to one knee. Max lifted his head, curious. "May I?" Vex asked, gesturing toward the dog. Of course. With careful movements, Vex extended his hand as Lyra had taught him. Max sniffed, then pushed his head under the commander's palm. Vex gently stroked the golden fur. "Extraordinary," he murmured. "On my world, touching an unknown creature would mean death." Across the room, Lyra approached with a small container. "Commander, with your permission, we've prepared some Credarian treats that our scientists determined are safe for Earth canines. Would you like to offer one?" The entire room seemed to hold its breath as Vex accepted the treat. With only slight hesitation, he offered it to Max, who took it delicately from his claws. "He's very gentle," Vex noted with surprise. "They can be," Miller agreed. "When treated with kindness, they return it tenfold." Vex stood, appearing to come to a decision. "Captain Miller, I would like to propose something unexpected. If relations between our species continue to improve, would Earth consider allowing some Credarians to adopt companion animals, perhaps those who need homes?" Miller couldn't hide his smile. "Commander, I think that could be the beginning of a beautiful friendship between our worlds and between your people and our four-legged friends." 1 year had passed since the Credarian fleet first appeared in Earth's orbit. The diplomatic chambers of the newly constructed Interspecies Alliance headquarters buzzed with excitement as delegates from both worlds gathered for a historic ceremony. Captain Miller, now Ambassador Miller, adjusted his formal uniform and checked his watch. Beside him, Max lay contentedly on a special cushion, a small diplomatic badge attached to his collar. The golden retriever had become something of a celebrity. The dog who prevented an interstellar war. "Almost time," Miller told Max, who thumped his tail against the cushion in response. The grand doors opened, and Commander Vex, now Ambassador Vex, entered the chamber. The Credarian's posture had changed dramatically over the past year. Gone was the rigid, fearful stance. Now he moved with confident ease, and at his side trotted a small Welsh corgi with a matching diplomatic badge. "Ambassador Miller," Vex greeted, extending his hand in the human gesture he had learned. "A momentous day." Miller shook the offered claw. "Indeed it is. I see Ambassador Pebbles is on duty as well." Vex looked down at his corgi with unmistakable affection. She insisted on attending. Diplomatic business is her favorite kind. The corgi spotted Max and gave a friendly bark. Max responded with a dignified woof. "They remember each other," Miller observed. "Pebbles never forgets a friend," Vex replied, his mandibles forming what humans now recognized as a Credarian smile. The chamber filled with delegates from both species. Among them was Science Officer Lyra, now Director Lyra of the newly established Interspecies Biology Research Center. Under her leadership, over 50 Credarian scientists were studying animal companionship, while dozens of human researchers learned about Credarian evolutionary biology. As the ceremony began, the leaders of both worlds took the stage. The Earth President and the Credarian High Chancellor approached the central podium together. 1 year ago, the President began. "A misunderstanding nearly led our species to conflict. Today, we signed the first formal alliance between Earth and Credaria." The High Chancellor nodded. "Our peoples have discovered that differences in perspective need not divide us. Sometimes they can unite us in unexpected ways." They signed the treaty together, triggering applause from the assembled delegates. As the formal part of the ceremony concluded, Ambassador Vex was invited to speak. "If someone had told me 1 year ago that I would stand before you with a small Earth predator as my companion, I would have questioned their sanity," Vex began, generating laughter from both species. "Yet here I stand with Pebbles, who has taught me more about courage than any military training." He gestured toward his corgi, who sat attentively at his side. Credarians evolved as prey animals. For millions of years, our instinct was to flee from danger. We built our civilization on caution and defense. Meeting humans, a species that domesticated predators for companionship, challenged everything we believed about the natural order. Vex knelt to stroke Pebbles, who leaned against his leg affectionately. "What we saw as weapons, you saw as friends. What we perceived as a threat was actually an opportunity. Thanks to the Earth Companion Adoption Program, over 300 Credarian families now experience the joy of animal companionship." In the audience, Miller noticed several Credarians with various dogs and even a few cats. The sight still amazed him. Aliens who had once feared Earth's pets now couldn't imagine life without them. After the ceremony, Miller found Vex in the reception area. The Credarian ambassador was sitting on a bench in the garden, throwing a small ball for Pebbles, who retrieved it with boundless enthusiasm. "Who would have thought," Miller said, sitting beside him, "that the thing you feared most would become the thing you cherish?" Vex caught the ball Pebbles returned and tossed it again. The universe has a sense of humor, it seems. "What's next for the ambassador and his fearsome beast?" Miller asked with a smile. Vex watched as Pebbles pounced on the ball, her stubby legs and wagging tail the picture of joy. His voice took on the gentle tone he used only with his dog. "Who's the fearsome beast?" "You are." "Yes, you are." He rubbed her belly as she rolled over, completely trusting. Then he looked at Miller, all 4 eyes reflecting contentment. "We're going home to Credaria next month." Pebbles will be the first Earth dog to visit our homeworld officially. Miller nodded. From Unleash the Beast to Diplomatic Pet. Quite a journey. Indeed, Vex agreed. And to think, it all began because you brought a cute pup to a peace talk. As the sunset painted the sky in brilliant colors, the two ambassadors, one human, one Credarian, sat in comfortable silence, watching their dogs play together on the lawn of a building dedicated to peace between worlds.